Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving into something I like to call the ultimate stress test. We're going to look at the terrifying logistics of a catastrophic failure at the Three Gorges Dam and figure out what the largest potential displacement event in human history would actually mean for the very survival of a government.
I want you to just picture this staggering reality for a second. 100 million people moving at the exact same time, in the exact same direction, away from water. You see, the Yangtze plain is home to roughly 400 million people. If that dam were to fail, the resulting panic, along with a total collapse of basic services, would literally force tens of millions of people to flee instantly.
And honestly, this scenario completely shatters our standard scale of reference for disasters. Think about the Syrian civil war. That displays roughly 13 million people, but that happened over an entire decade. The 2004 Indian Ocean tsunami, that was about 1.7 million. But a catastrophic event at the Three Gorges Dam, we are talking about displacing 50 to 100 million people, and not over years, but in a matter of days. Previous historical disasters are basically just a rehearsal compared to this level of massive displacement.
Section 1. The Geography of Chaos. 1,600 kilometers of panic.
So let's look at the physical reality of the Yangtze plain to understand exactly where all these people would be coming from. A flood wave would propagate downstream along a 1,600-kilometer corridor, hitting progressively larger megacities like dominoes. It starts near the dam with Yichang, which has 4 million people, then Jingzhou at 5.7 million, before barreling straight toward Wuhan's 11 million, Nanjing's 9 million, and ultimately threatening Shanghai and its 26 million residents. And here's the real geographical trap. The plain is totally flat. There is absolutely no high ground within walking distance to retreat to. Evacuation means you have to move laterally, away from the river, on highways shared by millions of other panicked people. It would create instant, insurmountable bottlenecks as the entire transportation grid completely collapses.
Now, you might be thinking, surely there are emergency systems in place, right? Well, even China's highly sophisticated emergency management system simply isn't designed for 100 million displaced persons all at once. 2 billion square meters. That is the amount of covered space you'd need just to shelter them. To put that into perspective, it's roughly equivalent to 280,000 football pitches of covered space. Even if you commandeered every single school, government building, and military facility in the region, the system's capacity would be instantly overwhelmed. No question.
And shelter is just the beginning of the nightmare. The daily food requirement is a staggering 200,000 tons. Just imagine trying to distribute that sheer volume of food on clogged, destroyed roadways with widespread power outages and zero fuel. It's a total logistical impossibility.
Then, of course, there's the water. Municipal systems would be totally wiped out or severely contaminated. 100 million people require 200 to 300 million liters of clean drinking water every single day just to survive. Trucking that volume to incredibly dispersed, chaotic refugee populations across a shattered disaster zone? Yeah, that's an absolute nightmare scenario.
Section 2. The Secondary Catastrophe. Disease and the Bankyo Precedent.
So here's the crucial, terrifying point. Surviving that initial wall of water is actually only the beginning of the ordeal. Mass displacement in flood conditions creates the absolute perfect breeding ground for epidemic disease. Floodwater gets mixed with raw sewage, industrial chemicals, and animal waste. It quickly becomes a massive vector for cholera, typhoid, and hepatitis A. Plus, all that standing water breeds mosquitoes, which spikes the risk of dengue fever. Add overcrowded makeshift shelters to the mix, and respiratory infections spread like wildfire. Furthermore, with the hospitals destroyed, chronic disease patients, people who desperately need insulin, heart medication, or dialysis, would face life-threatening shortages within days.
We actually have a grim historical precedent for this, the 1975 Banqiao Dam disaster. The numbers paint a truly terrifying picture. Direct drownings accounted for about 26,000 deaths, but secondary deaths from famine, disease, and the total collapse of basic services over the following weeks and months numbered anywhere from 145,000 to 214,000. That means the secondary death toll outnumbered direct drownings by a factor of 5 to 8. Now, if we apply that multiplier to a Three Gorges scale event displacing 50 to 100 million people, the secondary death toll could easily reach into the millions. Section 3. Rivers and Ruined Dynasties, the Mandate of Heaven.
Now, what's really fascinating and absolutely crucial for our focus today is what this immense collapse means for the government in charge. Historically, natural disasters in China aren't just tragedies. They are the ultimate catalysts for regime collapse. There's a very clear historical pattern here. The fall of the Yuan dynasty, the collapse of the Ming, the violent end of the Qing dynasty. All of these monumental shifts of power consistently align with periods of severe flooding, famine, and massive social upheaval along the Yangtze and Yellow rivers. Time and time again, history shows us that when the rivers break their banks, dynasties shatter.
And this brings us to a cultural cornerstone you absolutely need to understand: the mandate of heaven. In Chinese history, there is this deep, almost mythological association between a leader's ability to manage the rivers and their fundamental right to rule. Holding back the destructive force of the water is literally the ultimate test of political legitimacy. It's pretty simple in the eyes of history. If you cannot control the river, you lose the mandate, and the dynasty falls.
Section 4. The ultimate stress test. Modern legitimacy on the brink.
So, how does this ancient precedent apply today? Well, the modern government derives a massive part of its legitimacy from its ability to manage crises and deliver stability to its citizens. The Three Gorges Dam was actually built as a monumental symbol of that exact competence. Because of that, a catastrophic failure combined with 100 million refugees would fundamentally shatter that narrative. A government that cannot literally hold back the Yangtze faces a legitimacy crisis that no amount of economic growth can ever compensate for. The historical mandate of heaven would come knocking once again, just like it did centuries ago.
And of course, this leads to cascading geopolitical implications. It starts with Step 1, an unprecedented flood. That triggers Step 2, an unmanageable humanitarian and disease crisis. But ultimately, it leads to Step 3, a complete restructuring of the global order. Think about it. A China crippled by the worst disaster in modern history, dealing with millions of casualties and a massive internal legitimacy crisis, would fundamentally alter global power dynamics as we know them.
Which leaves us with this final, lingering thought. Numbers like 100 million displaced are so large they almost become abstract. But we have to remember every single one is a person, a family, a life totally upended. Nature is an unstoppable force, and governance is incredibly fragile in its wake. So can any government truly hold back the Yangtze when the unthinkable happens? Think about that for a bit. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Be sure to subscribe, because next time we'll be breaking down another absolutely crucial topic, the drinking water catastrophe facing 400 million people. See you then.